Why humans weren't built to sleep 8 hours. Think about the last time you woke up in the dead of night. It's 2 a.m., the house is dead silent, and you are wide awake. Immediately, the panic sets in. You calculate the hours left before your alarm goes off. You tell yourself to close your eyes, count sheep, or try deep breathing. You treat this midnight wakefulness like a system error, a biological failure. We call it insomnia, and we spend billions of dollars on sleep aids, noise machines, and sleeping pills trying to cure it. But what if waking up in the middle of the night isn't a disease at all? What if, for almost the entirety of human history, sleeping straight through the night for 8 uninterrupted hours would have seemed deeply strange, even unhealthy? The truth is, your body was never built for a single 8-hour block of sleep. That rigid schedule is a brand new, modern invention. And by forcing ourselves to live by it, we may have accidentally broken one of our oldest biological rhythms. For decades, historians and biologists took it for granted that humans have always slept the way we do now. You go to sleep, you wake up 8 hours later, and you start your day. But in the early 1990s, a historian named Roger E. Kirch stumbled upon a bizarre clue while researching life in pre-industrial Europe. He found a court deposition from 1699 mentioning a 9-year-old girl named Jane Rowland. In the document, she casually referred to waking up from her first sleep. E. Kirch was puzzled. Why did she call it her first sleep? He began digging deeper, combing through hundreds of thousands of diaries, medical texts, court records, and literature from before the 19th century. What he found rewritten across history was astonishing. Until roughly 200 years ago, human sleep was segmented. The typical night consisted of 2 distinct phases. People would head to bed shortly after dusk, around 9 or 10 p.m. They would drift off into what was universally known as the first sleep. This initial rest lasted about 3 to 4 hours. Then, naturally, and without alarms, the entire population would wake up around midnight. This middle-of-the-night waking wasn't met with panic or frustration. It was an expected, peaceful period of wakefulness known as the watch. For an hour or two, families would rise from their beds. Some stayed in bed to read, pray, or interpret the dreams they had just had. Others did quiet household chores like stoking the fire or spinning wool. People even used this dark, quiet window to slip out of their houses and visit close neighbors. In fact, medieval doctors wrote guides prescribing this exact midnight window as the absolute best time for couples to conceive, noting that people had more energy and felt more relaxed during these hours. After a couple of hours of quiet productivity or reflection, people would return to their beds and drift into their second sleep, which carried them all the way to dawn. Segmented sleep was as natural as breathing. It wasn't just a quirk of medieval England. Records of it were found all over the world. Then, about 200 years ago, something fundamental changed. The sun got weaker. Not the sun itself. The sun remained exactly as nuclear and indifferent as always. But as humans moved north, and eventually industrialized, our relationship with light changed. The Industrial Revolution introduced clock time. Suddenly, time was money. Factories needed to run 24 hours a day to maximize profit. Workers were required to show up at precise shift times. But there was still one problem. The night was still dark. Then came the widespread adoption of artificial light, first gas lighting and later electricity. Streetlights turned city nights into extensions of the day. Gas lighting in homes meant people no longer had to go to bed when the sun went down. Bedtimes crept later and later, past midnight. But because factory whistles and school bells still rang early in the morning, our sleep window got squeezed. Humans no longer had a 10 to 12-hour dark window to naturally split their sleep. We were forced to compress our entire night's rest into one single, uninterrupted block. By the late 19th century, the concept of 2 sleeps had virtually vanished from public consciousness. We had trained our minds to believe that sleeping 8 hours straight was the only natural way to survive, But our biology didn't get the memo. To find out if our bodies still remember this ancient rhythm, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware conducted a famous experiment in the early 1990s at the National Institute of Mental Health. He took a group of modern volunteers and stripped away their access to artificial light. For a month, these volunteers lived in an environment where they had only 10 hours of light each day and 14 hours of pitch darkness, simulating a natural pre-industrial winter night. At first, the subjects did what any sleep-deprived modern human would do. They slept for long, deep stretches to pay off their sleep debt. But by the fourth week, something remarkable happened. Without any prompting, their sleep patterns naturally mutated. They stopped sleeping in one continuous block. Instead, they reverted precisely to the segmented sleep of our ancestors. They would sleep for 4 hours, wake up for 2 hours of calm, quiet wakefulness, and then sleep for another 4 hours. The body's ancestral programming, dormant for a century, automatically booted back up. Even more fascinating was what was happening to their brain chemistry. During the quiet 2-hour waking period in the middle of the night, Baer discovered that the volunteers' brains secreted elevated levels of prolactin. Prolactin is the hormone associated with peace, deep relaxation, and the quiet satisfaction we feel after a long rest. This midnight waking state wasn't a state of stressful alertness. It was a peaceful, almost meditative state of consciousness that modern humans rarely get to experience. This brings us back to you staring at your ceiling at 2 a.m. When we wake up in the middle of the night, we assume something is wrong with us. We call it middle of the night insomnia, and we fight it with stress, anxiety, and sleep medication. But in many cases, your body is simply doing what it evolved to do for thousands of generations. Your brain has naturally finished its first sleep cycle. It is ready for the watch. But because our culture demands a solid, unbroken 8-hour block, we interpret this natural transition as a medical emergency. The anxiety we feel about waking up actually triggers our fight or flight response, flooding our system with cortisol and adrenaline. That stress is what actually ruins our sleep, making it impossible to drift into the second phase of rest. We've built a civilization that has decoupled our biology from our environment. We have traded our natural rhythms for the efficiency of the clock. So, the next time you wake up at 2 a.m., don't fight it. Don't check your phone. Don't look at the time, and don't panic. Understand that you are experiencing a quiet, peaceful state of human consciousness that our ancestors cherished. Your first sleep is over. Enjoy the watch, and when you are ready, your second sleep will be waiting.